From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN Noon News.
Good afternoon and thanks for joining us on the Noon News. I'm Diane Parker. Miller has the forecast, plus gun violence in Montana is hitting record highs. But first, our top story. 3 miners are injured after a collapse at Montana's largest coal mine near Roundup. At one point, these men were trapped underground. MTN's David J. has the very latest.
We're at the Signal Peak mine south of Roundup. 3 people involved in the accident. 1 went to the hospital by helicopter, 1 by ambulance, and 1 drove on his own. And all 3 were brought out by the company's mine rescue team. The 3 men were about a mile into the longwall mine when a boulder came loose. 2 men had been taken out of the mine, and it took about half an hour to help the 3rd man.
He was the last one out. As it was reported to us, he had one of his legs was still pinned under a rock. So the extrication team had to get the rock off of his leg to get him onto the backboard and transported.
Justin Russell, Musselshell County DES director, called this a freak accident.
No air was cut off. It wasn't a total collapse. It was just a section. Again, not sure the exact size, but just a small section. It had come down in the area where these miners were working.
Many in Roundup have concerns for the safety of their relatives or friends working at the mine.
My son-in-law has 2 brothers that work up there.
My first thought was maybe my brother was in there or my brother-in-law.
Ryan Bruner worked at the mine about 15 years ago and says safety is emphasized.
I like to think of it like a parking garage. It's all underground and it's complete darkness with your little lamp on. That's the only light you have. But, you know, it was pretty spacious and you felt safe enough. You have to keep your mind on your job, but you have to watch what you're doing at all times.
Well, I hope everybody's safe when they work at the mine, or any place for that matter. Safety's always number one.
And they say it's a tight-knit community supporting miners in Roundup.
When somebody has something happen, a family or a loved one, everyone kind of gets together and helps in any way they can with, prayers and, helping the family.
Just keep prayers for the family here in Roundup that has gotten hurt. Okay. That's all we can ask for.
In Roundup, David J., MTN News.
Gun-related crimes in Montana reached record highs the past 2 years, and Billings is one of the communities with the most violence. MTN's Haley Monaco shows us how local, state, and federal law enforcement are joining forces to reverse the trend.
This is just a fraction of the number of guns confiscated in and around Yellowstone County in recent years, a number of them made to be illegal and stolen off of the streets.
We have a significant gun violence problem in this community.
And it's been going on for several years. 2023 has already seen 3 gun-related deaths in Billings, and 2022 saw a record number of firearm arrests, according to U.S. Attorney Jesse Laslovich.
The total number of defendants this office indicted for firearm-related crime was 167 people, which is the highest in the last decade.
In 2012, the number was 63. That's why Laslovich, Police Chief Rich St. John, and others held a press conference Wednesday. St. John said 13 to 22-year-olds is the age group most often involved in firearm-related crime. It is clear that minors cannot purchase firearms, which brings the question, how are they obtaining them?
We know that juveniles can't buy firearms, so they're stolen. They're loaned, they're given, sometimes access in the home.
We are pleased to report the Billings Police Department has recently submitted its first batch of shell casings for comparison to the ATF lab.
Officials say gun violence is driven primarily by drug trafficking activity, and firearms are usually stolen, often from vehicles. A new way Billings is trying to track them, the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, or NIBIN, to trace firearms from found shell casings.
NIBIN enables local law enforcement to identify patterns and develop leads that may not have otherwise been discovered.
One thing officials wanted to make clear Wednesday, this isn't a gun control issue.
We're not coming for those who use guns recreationally or to hunt wild game or just want to possess a gun because they can do so lawfully.
In Billings, Haley Monaco, MTN News.
The Montana Highway Patrol trooper who was run over by a suspect's vehicle during a police chase near Eureka is headed out of state to continue his recovery. Trooper Lewis Johnson suffered serious injuries in the February 16th incident, including spinal cord trauma. Tuesday, law enforcement agencies escorted Trooper Johnson and his family to Glacier Park International Airport, where he was airlifted to a Denver hospital for further treatment. The man accused of hitting him, Jason Allen Miller, faces 3 felony charges, including attempted deliberate homicide. Illegal drugs are making their way into Montana through the mail. A Gallatin County man named Kevin Bacon was just arrested this week for allegedly receiving 2 pounds of meth in a package delivered to the Manhattan post office. Postal workers notified officers immediately, and Bacon was arrested in the parking lot the day he tried to pick the package up. Officers say the mail came from California.
We've seen an increase in illegal drugs being transported through U.S. mail as well as the various parcel services.
Bacon is facing a possession with the intent to distribute charge and up to 20 years in prison. The Park County Sheriff's Office is investigating the death of a woman, which was first reported this past Sunday. According to a social media post, a call came into dispatch from Livingston Healthcare that a patient who was already dead was brought into the emergency department. The woman was identified as 55-year-old Catherine Sorensen. The sheriff's office says Sorensen's husband was the one who brought her into the emergency department. He told deputies she was accidentally run over by a vehicle in the area of Divide Creek Road. The Park County Sheriff's Office and Montana Highway Patrol are investigating the circumstances surrounding Sorensen's death. They are trying to identify a woman who stopped along Divide Creek Road and assisted in getting Sorensen into a vehicle and to the hospital. If you have any information on the woman's identity, contact the sheriff's office. The woman who shot, killed, and skinned an abandoned husky in western Montana last September has been sentenced. Amber Barnes receives a 6-month deferred sentence after facing misdemeanor cruelty charge. This means her record of the incident will be wiped clean if she meets requirements of her sentencing, which include completing an online hunting course. Barnes told authorities she had mistaken the husky for a wolf pup. And that's a look at some of the day's top stories.
Happy Thursday, everybody, as we get closer and closer to the weekend. Our local forecast here in just a second. But first, let's take a look at your U.S. Headlines for today. Weather-wise, southern plains, middle and lower Mississippi valleys, Tennessee and Ohio valleys. In the southeast, severe storms and heavy rain possible. Could see some tornado activity there as well. Upper Midwest into the northeast, heavy snow expected. Also the southern plains. Been dealing with this the last couple of days. We'll continue to see this at least through today. Critical fire weather concerns are possible. Very windy, very dry in those areas. Now, speaking of winds, some of us across the state going to have some very strong winds. 50, 60, 70 mile an hour gusts are possible. We'll tell you where and when with the main forecast coming up.